What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Rat's Den, and welcome back to Diablo 2 Resurrected. I recently watched a video review reaction by Llama. Shout out to him. He's always made some pretty good content. And he reacted to kind of a new player's perspective. And I kind of want to put in my 2 cents on optimize your experience in in modern times. And the first thing that I do want to talk about is something that I didn't agree with to start out with, and that is to use a controller. As you can see here, I'm playing on PC, but I'm using a PlayStation DualSense controller. And you can see all of my hotkeys below. You know, you got your X square, circle, and so forth. L3 to switch between walk, L2 to switch between your other set of casts. Now, the reason why I want to point this out is because when you use a mouse to play, for new players, if you're using just a mouse, you're kind of introduced to only two skill sets here, right? And it doesn't appear that you can do a lot with these skill sets. But one thing that is important to note, you can see this F1 key right here, right? So you can assign, you click on that icon, you can assign your skill on the F keys, like so. Then you can, you know, similarly assign all your different other skills um, on other F keys as well. It says right there, press F1 through F8 to bind a skill. Same thing here, right? And you use those interchangeably as you click through the screen. Now, when I first started out, I had no idea how to do this, let alone assign skills or just what combinations there were. But this was a big part of the puzzle that I think helped to kind of click in a player's mind when you're playing with just a mouse and keyboard. I now think that there are certain circumstances where mouse and keyboard will conquer everything, and it's kind of like the one-stop shop if you're a pro player. But I think that if you're coming from a casual area, which in my perspective, it is on the Diablo 3 and Diablo 4 gaming perspectives, it's more casual. And as Lama put it, it's kind of like hold your hand along the way. If you're coming from that perspective, I really, again, highly recommend that you switch to using a controller because then it gives you that kind of sense where you do have kind of full control over your skills. And my personal preference now is to use a mix of these things. When I'm playing the game now, I just like to use controller. Of course, when I'm on my couch, I use controller. And now I've gotten to the point where I can kind of manage things. I think things like chatting and trading and item management, if you want to kind of fully organize it in your stash, if you want to kind of get nerdy about it, like I have, I've sorted my armors and kind of weapons and so forth. Like all this right here, this is intentional. You know, the gems border my jewels and my high runes. Things that like something like this to color cord all your jewels and gems. Put like ones in the same category. If you want to nerd out like that, then I highly suggest using a mouse and keyboard. So first point is I think just start off using a controller, and that's going to kind of give you a better sense of how to assign your skills and how expansive you can get with using all of your skills. So again, this immediately gives you a sense of how to use your skills. And let me give you an example of what we can do in combat with these types of skills. So starting out, I'm not using my main offensive, but I switch by using R1. And now that makes me more powerful. Okay. Now if I'm hurt, I want to heal myself and switch to my um what's that redemption spell, right? And then I've absorbed the characters on the ground. Right? If I'm in a heated battle, like so down here, actually using vigor. If I'm in a heated battle and I feel like I need a little bit of elemental defense, I'll switch out to salvation, right? And you can see how the pace of things is crazy. If I'm ready to finalize everything and kill everybody, I'll just switch out to what's it called, fanaticism. Right? And now my mercenary gets a buff, and I get a buff. Right? So that's just one example, right? A quick skirmish of what you can do on Switch, and how to kind of go about using your skills. Now, I've only talked about the auras, but you did see a combination of me using my attacks along with my auras as well. So you can see that I have Zeal assigned right here on square, and then I have Charge assigned on circle. And basically what this does kind of allows me to, I can use charge to kind of get a little quick bump if I wanted to, right? If I know that there's no enemies on screen, I can quickly hit L2 and R1 as my vigor assigned, so I can kind of travel a little bit faster. If I know where enemies are coming, I'll basically switch to fanaticism, and my main attack is going to be zeal on square, right? So like having this access to all of these abilities at the palm, literally at the palm of your own hands, right? You can see that it becomes a little bit more natural for someone who's coming from Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, right? But if you're on a mouse and keyboard and it's the very first time you've played it ever, I can clearly understand where the confusion comes from, and I highly recommend to at least get yourself a controller on board. So what I'll do here is I'll give you an example of just using teleport um, for traversal, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of players out there who have seen this, but this is specifically aimed at new players who have never used the teleport skill. Just gonna go out to the uh, chaos, and what I'm gonna do here is I do have actually some skills that I want to use for my sorceress. So defense, thunderstorm, energy shield, right? It's a beautiful aesthetic look. All right. And you can already see that I do have for traversal purposes. I have teleport on circle. And the sorceress has a beautiful cast rate, so she's going to really zoom through the map. Like so. And of course, we're already here in Sanctuary, or in Chaos, right? And that reduces the amount of time that you have to travel down there. So now we're here, and we just teleport, right? Kind of wreck through because I'm fairly strong, right? For PVM at least. And we're just fluctuating between teleport and between my main skill, which is one of the biggest skills that kind of made me fall in love with Diablo. It was Frozen Orb. It's just still my favorite sorceress skill to this day, even though I know it's not the strongest, right? And again, I feel like controller has optimized this experience for the sorceress, because you kind of like can place yourself in a better defensive position, right? Right. And we all know that chaos is pretty tough for for any character unless you're kind of new or like a pro in this game, right? Here, this is a great place to magic find, right? And instead of having to like click, like for instance this, and you're clicking on a character, and then you're running away like this, and you're clicking on a character and you're running away. That's just not the way a sorceress is meant to be played. You're meant to teleport around, right? Kind of be this kind of destruction blasting elemental machine, right? And they have a harder time getting you on physical attacks. Uh, you just have to worry about their auras at times. I think that's a holy fire aura right there. And I mean, that's pretty much the experience of a sorceress, right? You want to get around, you want to kill things as quick as possible, right? It's just super fast. You could throw in a little bit of static if you want to kind of quickly reduce their health bar. Right, right. We're going and we're going, and that's Diablo for a sorceress, you know? Maximize your skills, teleport around and use them, you know? But I think one thing to point out is like to concentrate the most on, start with learning your skills first, right? Teleport, you probably just need 1 point into teleport, and your gear take care of the rest, right? So you have things like the full Tal set giving you 3+ skills to sorceress. The Tal Ami also gives you 2+. Spirit does give you 2 to all skills. And this one gives you 1 to all skills. And what else? The like Asajj would give you skills. The Charms will give you plus skills, particular to those trees, right? Uh, and so forth and so forth. And that's what makes you kind of grow in your power, right? So let's take a look at cold. You can see here that I do have 30 cold skills for frozen, bringing the damage up to 655. It's not the highest, but it's definitely not the lowest. But it's maximized, right? And then you can see here that your synergy for frozen orb at the very bottom, your synergy is ice bolt. So you want to maximize your specific build to reflect whatever you're building. So if it was blizzard, you would try to maximize ice bolt, ice blast, and glacial spike to get that extra damage, right? So take some time to learn your skills. Understand that down the line, you will only need to put 1 point into certain skills. And understand that it will take some time to fully learn your builds and how to play the game in general. So that's tip number 2. And I'm not going to say that I'm the best player that there is. I just acquired this knowledge over the 20 years that this game has been out. I've played for years and years. I've taken breaks. I've come back to it. I started out knowing nothing. In the middle, I started to understand things. I started to learn about synergies. I took breaks. I came back. I went to other builds. I started to learn about their builds. Switched on to melee characters. Didn't like them at first, but grew to love them. They're one of my favorite builds now, as you saw with the Zealer I made. It's gonna take some time, effort, and research on your end, and devotion to that time and research to understand and get to this point, end game point of Diablo, which is honestly it's awfully rewarding to get to this particular point in the game. It is very rewarding. So don't think that you're going to go from level 1 to level 90 immediately, and don't think that you're going to get all of this gear instantaneously. It took me very, very long to get things like high rune drops. It took me very long to trade with people and to even get a jaw rune, right? So again, I highly recommend for you to put in the time. Time is a big thing for Diablo. You're going to be grinding. You're going to be grinding, and you're not going to touch a burr rune. And these videos that you see on YouTube, they probably play with big ass groups to where the high rune drop rate is takes forever. But as someone who is more of a solo online player who does like to trade, believe me, it takes a lot of time to get to this point. And that's a big thing that I want to stress out to new players. If there is a final advice that I can make about Diablo 2 Resurrected, if you're trying to just complete the game the very first time that you played, and you want to kind of have the experiences where it's a little bit on the easier side of things, then I think a Hammer Paladin probably going to be your best bet, even on through getting to Hell, because you really don't have to worry so much about enemy resistances down the line in Hell modes and in Nightmare modes. And that's because the Hammerdin is probably one of the most powerful characters in the game. Let's kind of quickly look at why. So looking at my hammer, my blessed hammer damage right at the very top middle, it says 11,000 damage, and it's a pure 11,000 to 11,000. It's just an insane amount of damage. It might be a tiny bit slow, but it really doesn't matter because once you get into an enemy's face, they just melt right away. So right here, we can just teleport right into the mom and just start laying hammers, and you can see them. They just start falling on the ground. Items start dropping. You know, you don't really have to worry about where you're at. Because your defense is pretty good. You can see that Eldritch mob cleared out pretty quickly, right? Um, and it's a very quick skirmish, right? So again, Hammerdin is probably going to be your best bet when starting out a new game. If you're just trying to clear and play it safe, now you won't be able to teleport like I have been without an Enigma or a teleport amulet, but you can still get to certain points now of damage without all of these gears. Okay, so the last thing that I did want to mention for new players is you're going to want to have a mercenary that has the Runeword insight. I did see the player in that game like going into his inventory, right-clicking on a mana potion, and then going back to fight Diablo. You definitely don't want to experience that. You're going to have to in the very beginning until you get insight. And what insight does is it does level 16 meditation aura. And what that does, we can quickly look at the skills here for the Hammerdin. Meditation, when active, aura increases mana recovery for you and your party. So you basically can spam hammers or whatever spell that you have infinitely, right? Without really losing mana, right? You can continuously see that my blue orb is recovering really quick, right? It keeps on recovering. And I'm probably not going to spam this forever, in all honesty, in a skirmish. Let's go take a look, right? I was just holding it for like, I don't know, 20 seconds, right? But if we go into a skirmish, right? Right here. We're only going to spam it and we're going to move around. We're going to teleport. We're going to place ourselves, right? And that's a typical kind of fight for you, right? And you can see here that my mana goes back up. So insight is very, very key in your experience through Diablo in order to have that feeling where you don't have to worry about mana. And again, that's something that's not really explained to a new player. And I honestly didn't know about that when I first played Diablo. So let me give you an example of a lower end Hammerdin that actually needs to use potions. You can see my belt here has one red and one blue because I have to use potions because you can see how much mana it does drain, right? Right away. Very, very tough, right? My mana is just low. I'm gonna have to use a potion to rejuvenate, right? I'll go here and use this well and restock, right? So I'm gonna have to do things like this in the very beginning of the game, right? And then you can see now my mercenary activated his aura, and now we have two auras. We got two stacked auras, right? And it's very, very important to understand this aspect of the game because most of the time, nearly all characters are going to have some type of aura deficit, right? You're going to want to try to achieve something by having an aura, either by a mercenary or by yourself. So it's a big, big thing to understand. And I think that if you kind of key in on this information, that'll kind of open the doorway for you to understand what you need to do to get a little bit comfortable with Diablo. Give you another example of stacked aura, something that maybe we didn't see or kind of pick up on earlier. I was just kind of showing you the skills at a glance. Okay, so let's look at my base damage with Zeal. Zeal damages 1000 to 1700. That's the range. Now, this is with no auras, right? So, one thing to understand that about a paladin, or about physical characters in general, is that once you place fanaticism on there, it does give you a boost to your damage. We can check it out again. Now I went from base of 1000 to 1500, and now the maximum is going to be 2300. Right, and the reason again is because of because of the aura that I'm using, which is fanaticism. This it increases the damage, attack speed, and attack rating for you and your party. And that's going to be awesome because I'll be able to spread this aura to my mercenary right there, right? And now he has that same benefit, right? If I turn it off, you can see my mercenary's damage is at 895 and the other weapon has 1800 to the top end. Turning on fanaticism boosts his damage to now 1100 for one weapon, now 3000 for the next, right? And that's an expansive amount of damage for a mercenary with just using one aura, right? So again, I think understanding how to stack auras. There's even a build for a paladin to kind of stack, either holy fire or using dream paladin. It's an expansive way to understand the game. Once you do understand the game, you can kind of make goals for yourself to get to this point in time and say, hey, I want to build this type of character. I want to build a melee character that is just super powerful. And how do I get there? Keep asking those questions to yourself. how do I make him more strong? Why is my, at this point in time, why is my character so weak? How can I maximize that, right? And I think that's kind of important for you to understand to get to kind of this super destruction point right here when you can demolish all the characters at a fast clip, like you just saw right there, right? So that's my kind of 2 cents for new players out there. I know this was probably a long video, and it's not an easy game to understand. But when you put in the research, when you put in the time, and then you invest in kind of all the things that add up to, you'll probably end up with a great, how should I say this? You'll end up with a great output of an action RPG that really still has no competition. There's just no competition in my perspective that to get that type of feel. It's like an immediate feel. It's like the true element of action within the action RPG, right? I feel like there's more action to it. And I feel like there's a little bit more reward. One of the things that Llama said about the hand holding again is that you don't feel that sudden surge of animosity when it comes to being a powerful character. Something like my character here, all of these items that I've placed in his, uh, you know, arsenal, it took some time to get here. And these aren't even the best items right here. You can get this particular setup fairly easily and actually have a great time. Combination of mercenary and your own personal inventory. Also very, very hard to get to. But once you do, it's your bragging right, and it's a way to say this game kicks ass, and you have a certain satisfaction. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.